The Book of Genesis Part 77. The Book of Genesis Part 77. James Gunn. Adjustments and Adversities, Chapter 39:1-14. There are highlights even amidst the dark shadows of grievous happenings. Although he was a slave, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. Genesis 39 verses 1-3. Joseph trusted. The word rendered here prosperous might have been rendered profitable. The use of this word brings to mind another slave, a slave mentioned in the New Testament, Onesimus by name, Film. Onesimus, the meaning of which name is profitable, was the property of Philemon, a Christian in Colossae. Inasmuch as he stole from his master and ran away, he belied the meaning of his name, and proved to be most unprofitable. In some remarkable manner, this fugitive was brought into contact with the Apostle Paul, through whose influence he was genuinely converted to the Lord. Later, the Apostle attempted to bring about a reconciliation between the offended master, Philemon, and the offending slave. He wrote, playing upon the meaning of Onesimus' name, which in time past was to thee unprofitable, but now profitable to thee and to me, Film. 11. Through the grace of God, Onesimus was given power to live in accord with the significance of his name. Joseph, unlike Onesimus, was always a most profitable slave in the Egyptian household. The reason for Joseph's success and profit is found in the constant presence of the Lord with him. The Lord was with him, the Lord made all that he did to prosper. Consequently, one is not surprised to learn that Joseph's master promoted him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put under his hand. Genesis 39 verse 4. The presence of the Lord with his people resulted in strength and success in Joseph's case. In the case of Moses, who prayed, "If thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence," Exodus 33 verse 15, it meant wisdom and guidance. David considered the presence of the Lord as the source of light and comfort. He wrote, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." Psalms 23 verse 4. It is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. 1 Corinthians 4 verse 2. In regard to deacons, the Spirit of God states, "Let these also first be proved, then let them use the office of a deacon." 1 Timothy 3 verse 10. Joseph was tested thoroughly by heavy responsibility in the Egyptian household and found faithful. He is an illustration of the principle stated by the Lord, "He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much." Luke 16 verse 10. His life also illustrated the purpose of reward during the kingdom reign of Christ. The king, if satisfied by the fidelity of his servant, will say, "Thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority." Luke 19 verse 16. Joseph tempted. We must satisfy ourselves from the Word of God as to the true meaning of temptation. Without a clear understanding, it is possible that certain scriptures may be misconstrued. The statement in Genesis 22 verse 1, "And it came to pass after these things, that God did tempt Abraham," might lead to a wrong conception of God and of his dealings with his own. The Apostle James differentiated between trial or testing and temptation. It is regrettable that this distinction is not more evident in the English translations of the Bible. The dual usage of the word temptation, unfortunately, confuses the matter. Speaking of trial, James writes, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man, but every man is tempted, when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed." James 1 verses 12-14. It could be said that temptation is a trial or a test, but, in the sense in which the word is employed here, trial may not be necessarily temptation. Joseph was tried by adversity, the hatred of his brothers, and the consequences of their malicious actions. He was also tried by prosperity in Potiphar's home. In that same home he was to be tempted. The ordeal through which he was to pass manifests the character of temptation, and the only effectual resistance against it. Temptation is attractive. Such was the form in which it approached Joseph. It is also wicked, illicit, in character. It is unexpected as to its source, and insistent in its efforts. It repeatedly attacks moral standards. It thrusts with the element of surprise, and in the final analysis, it is against God. Undoubtedly, temptation injures those who indulge, it also offends those who otherwise may be involved, but, even more serious than these, it is an affront to God. Resistance, to be effectual, as in the case of Joseph, resistance must develop strength with each enticing approach of evil. In the first place, Joseph refused and stated his refusal in pointed language to Potiphar's wife. In the second place, his refusal was reinforced by reason. The prohibitions demanded by holiness and ethics were a power in Joseph's defense. In the third place, his refusal was in accord with divine standards. He solemnly asked, "How can I do this great wickedness, and sin against God?" Finally, when seductive wickedness insisted in its attempts to overcome Joseph's moral guard, he retreated from the presence of temptation. Even in such resistance to sinful inducements, the depraved heart of man is so selfish that it reasons, "It is vain to serve God. What profit is it that we have kept his ordinance?" Malachi 3 verse 14. Joseph's refusal and resistance only resulted in further trouble. Granted, the loss of his garments was only indication of more important losses, his freedom and his reputation. It has been said that reputation is what others believe a man to be, while character reveals what a man actually is. These have been further defined thus: character is the sum of a man's habits, for character is built by the slow process of thought, act, repetition, habit, and then character. Reputation has been defined as the sum of a man's pretensions. It is the hypocritical veneer behind which he hides before the public. Resistance does not defend reputation, it defends character. Joseph sacrificed his reputation, but not only retained his character, he strengthened it.